think my mic's.
Oh, yeah.
Turn on.
Let's give it up for the crew of Help. Test? Nope. Still not. Maybe should we start without the mics and then?
No, just wait.
Okay. I want your vision to be.
No,
There's no vision. Tap? No, still not done. Oh, that was something. Was that you?
No.
No.
Something's
Or
happening.
you were going to the desert.
Oh, mine is.
Oh, that's me. We can hear me? Should we start? Yeah. All right. Thank you everybody for coming out for Help. My name is Jake Niebuhr. I guess I'm a co-producer. I learned that for the first time about 2 seconds ago. That's pretty exciting. But I'm here with director and everything else you saw in there, Justin Max. Tyler Mashtori, who starred as George. Writers Owen Hananel and Steve Penmenza. And the mysterious figure who doesn't have a name, Nick Holterman. This whole place is coming down. All right. Is that me? Should we go no mics? Yeah.
It's gonna be this mic on the wall, that's the one that's doing the echo.
This is the one.
Yeah.
Should we just lose the mic? Yeah.
Yeah.
We can just take it off.
There's a button in the wall you have to push to.
Oh, I
release
see.
it.
I got it. Alright. I'll project. I'll be on. Alright, so Tyler, I want to start the Q&A with you. It was fascinating watching your transformation into this character, George. You had a physical transformation, you dyed your hair for it, and I really feel like you became this guy. So talk to me about, George seems like somebody at the end who is in need of some help. Do you think that he needed help the whole time, or what are your thoughts on George as a character?
First of all, thanks to everybody for coming on out. This is really sick. Yeah, and also thanks to Justin, to Steve for asking me to be in this, and Jake for moderating. I think that's everybody. I mean, George, from the moment I read this script, I feel like there's this kind of internal turmoil with him where he lives like a really boring, like quiet existence. And I kind of related to that because there was a time in my life that was very isolated. I'm not going to use this, sorry, I can hear my own voice. I think there was a time in my life that was incredibly isolated and kind of like, I felt like there wasn't really much going on. I was kind of like searching for purpose, and I think at the end, I think throughout the whole time, I think he's trying to convince himself that he's okay, and then at the very end, I'm glad that you caught that he needs help.
It was subtle.
Yeah, very, very subtle, but I'm glad we all picked up on that. I think, it's this moment, especially like at the very end, where I think to get myself in that headspace, I was rereading some old journal entries of some very, very dark times. I was blasting like Linkin Park, just like really, really hateful shit in my ears. And I just wanted to kind of remind myself of how it felt to be in that headspace again and just, having all this pent up energy. And I think at the very end, it's like, George and I are very similar in terms of how we kind of conduct our days and live our lives, except at the very end, because at the very end, he is able to ask for help. And I think that's something that I'm still learning how to do in a lot of cases. But I think being able to just let that loose, and it's like this beautiful catharsis. And I don't know if that answers your question, but
Totally, no,
that is my answer.
Great. Nick, I want to talk to the other star of our film. How much did you know about this character, which at one point was known as the Watcher, now he's just question mark, question mark, question mark. What was it like putting on that mask, and how much did you know what you were signing up for when you got into this?
It was hot, really sweaty, and well, how much did I know about him?
What did you think you were signing up for? How did it
Exactly what we just saw.
Yeah. Well, how did Justin rope you in? What was the first conversation you guys had?
He said, "Do you want to be like the villain in my movie?" And I said, "Do I have to show my face?" And he said, "No, you can wear a mask." And I said, "Okay." Because I think the villains are cool. I don't really act. It's easy when you have, a director like Justin, who's an actor's director. He's but yeah, I thought it was fun. It was very physical.
A lot of running.
A lot of running. That was only like 10% of the running we did. Running in my Doc Martens, rolled an ankle. Yeah, I didn't know much about his inner life. We kind of tried to keep it that way. We wanted it to be a blank slate that anyone could project, their villainy onto. He kind of represents isolation and fear and help, He doesn't have a backstory, he doesn't need one. You can put it in there if you want.
Great. Sudeep and Owen, I understand that HELP wasn't the original name of this project. Talk to me about how this whole thing came to be. What was the first conversation about what this project would be, and how did it become what we just watched? Do you want to start off?
So I think it originally started, it was one of Justin's dreams, I think, that he saw this image of like this guy in Martin Brea, and we found the script earlier today actually it was the first draft from August 2023. So this has been kind of an evolution, and since then it was called Transplant. That was the first title for the movie, mostly exploring the George as a transplant to LA. And I think in the earlier versions there was more dialogue about George being in LA, kind of fitting in, and I think we kind of narrowed that down more. But the element of like him being a transplant and him being like not where he should be kind of stayed throughout the movie. So
yeah, and I mean it's gone through so many iterations. Like the first draft Steve wrote was more dialogue based. This is more action based, and I think Justin did a good job of like infusing tension in a lot of those quiet moments, and really just letting Tyler's lack of dialogue kind of like speak for itself. But yeah, I mean it was a totally different film. It became HELP, and then we started out as The Watcher, and then we really locked in on George and what does he need? He needs help, and I think
Cool. So Justin, I want to know, how do you respond to allegations of a toxic workplace? Including a constant ask for patient dates, and then just a complete unawareness of other people's time.
should we give this to the roommates?
We'll get that.
This is my first film, so I wasn't really sure how things were done. I was just kind of taking it day by day. And I think there were some times where I was very demanding. A lot of texts. There were a lot of texts going back and forth, and it was completely unrealistic to expect you guys to respond to all of them. Sometimes I was just talking to myself, and I think that was a necessary part of the process, just like bouncing ideas off you guys. Toxicity, I wouldn't go that far. I think the set, seriously, was a lot of fun and denied.
Do you see what the bit is now?
A bit.
Sudeep, I know that you're gearing up to shoot a short film of your own. I want to hear from each of you guys, what did you learn from this process, and what would you take it into future projects? I guess starting with Sudeep, since I know that's something you're gearing up for soon.
Yeah, I think really just learned how to be efficient on set. I think we had some roadblocks. We got shut down the first time we tried to film in Park Brea. Security wasn't allowing us in close, we couldn't film, and that kind of, we had to go through some like more loopholes. So I think like being on set, we had a whole notebook and like we alternate, you film or I, like what take, kind of what audio file we're using, and so like being really organized and efficient. It took like longer than we thought it would, but yeah, I think it went like pretty well actually like day-to-day filming, so I'll take that to the next one.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I'd say filmmaking is a very collaborative profession, and this was a collaborative process. And starting out, we didn't know that Justin was going to take the lead like he did. Originally, me, Justin, Sudeep were all going to co-direct this. We each have a writing credit. Sudeep and I sort of did the first pass, and then Justin came in with a few rewrites. And, sometimes Sudeep and I would have suggestion. And Justin would say something like, that's a great scene just for a different movie. And, we didn't set out knowing that it was going to be this, but I'm very proud of the final product. And I think ultimately, like I said, it's a collaborative process, but what I learned is that one person does need to have final say in a lot of respects. And when you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen creatively, it can get messy with people getting attached to their own ideas and ego. But I don't think there was really much ego on this set. It was very, it's not,
I agree.
yeah. Collaboration.
What's the
Would you take it another if you didn't?
Oh.
Yeah. You can learn anything.
There's so much that I would cycle through. If you ever see like a hulking, scary masked figure, they're probably more scared of you than you are. Justin pushed me out of my comfort zone, walking around in that mask. Were the cops gonna get called? Are people gonna be freaked out?
Tell the story of the unfortunate run-in with.
Oh, yeah. I turned a corner. I guess at one point the watcher walks around during the daylight. You can actually see him a little Hitchcockian hint of what's to come. But I was walking around, and the second I turned that corner,
Our neighbor who works for
Yes.
Park La Brea.
Right, the Park La Brea, governor or whatever,
Governess.
right, was right in front of me, walking with her groceries, and she just, freaked out, because I was obviously walking towards her in a mask and I think a weapon of some sort, right?
No.
I think I had a weapon.
You are a woman.
Yeah, you're.
Yeah.
Did I not have a knife? Oh.
Schrodinger's knife.
I didn't have a weapon, but it was whoa, am I scaring people? And it kind of got me out of my comfort zone, I guess, in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go. I learned, I don't need that. I learned a lot of mindfulness techniques and patience, and you can't control everything. I think it's really important, especially when you're in front of the camera, to just kind of let whatever's going on behind the camera just kind of happen, even if I feel like I have calluses on my tongue from the amount of times I did it. And I think there's a lot of cases where, I guess what I'll say is like I think I learned to appreciate kind of the artistic process, especially like, you know, are we kind of familiar with like punk music? Right? I think the beauty of like punk is that sometimes when you go up on stage, you know, or rather when you're watching someone on stage, they're playing a riff or they're playing a note that they've never tried before. They're learning as they go. They're inventing or rediscovering or discovering their own musical ability as they're performing. And I feel like in that way, Justin is very much like a punk rock director in that I was watching him figure out like these little things as we were going along, like how to set up a tripod, like how to give me direction. Just generally, I think it was really, really great to you know, watch that all unfold. And I think ultimately what I'm learning is that there's you know, just to be ambitious in my own process, because watching him be ambitious and learn so much from it, I'm sure there's so much more that I can learn as well. So, just by trying.
Thank you, Ted.
You're welcome.
And that's all the time we have for that question. Justin, in order to ensure George's house looked barren, I understand that you moved all of the furniture out of your living room for several weeks, including leaving furniture at my house that you still have not picked up. How do you think your roommates felt about that?
I want to sincerely thank them for their patience and during that time, because it definitely ended up being longer. Like the furniture was out of the house a lot longer than we initially expected, because the first night of shooting, like Owen said, we got shut down, and I kind of shut down that night, and so we lost an entire week of filming. And so our furniture had to be out of the house for like an extra like 10 days, and it was weird. It was a weird time. But yeah, I mean, I gave them credit, so.
You think they're cool with it? Oh, and you like that?
Yeah.
I liked what?
You like not having furniture in your living room?
It was a minimalist apartment. It honestly reminded me of when we first moved in. That's yeah.
Jenna, Maddie, you guys feel good about that?
No comment.
No comment. That's fair. That's fair. Owen, I understand in the desert you had a pretty scary run-in with some flies. Tell me about shooting in that crazy. It was a beautiful set, but tell me about shooting there.
It was a beautiful but hostile environment.
I mean, yeah, we wanted to find this post-apocalyptic sort of, almost like what we thought an afterlife might look like, heaven or hell. It's up to your interpretation, like Nick said. But yeah, those flies. Fuck those flies. I have nightmares about that day. Yeah, for other reasons. I think we each.
I was just gonna say he did hide out in the car from the flies for a little bit, so there's a video of that. Briefly.
The BTS reel is in development. And also there was a really great moment of serendipity at the end where you, in the desert, you kind of like, a fly buzzes in your face, and then you walk over to like a pile of rocks and like shoo the fly away. And I love that moment.
Yeah. I can expound on that. So at the end, you know, when I scream flock, it's because a fly was flying in my face. But I, like in the moment, I just remembered thinking like, oh man, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna fucking crush that bug. Like I saw it just land on that rock over there. Like I'm gonna go do it. And I walked over and I was looking at it and it was looking right back at me. And when I bent down to like kind of nudge the rock, it wasn't moving. Like it was almost like kind of, I didn't know. It was freaky. It kind of like, in a way, it kind of felt like, almost like beckoning, or like, you know, like there was this unspoken like communication between us. It was really, honestly, like surreal. And when I nudged the rock, it just kind of like, it flew towards the camera and then out and back towards the mountains. And I feel like that, like we kept it in. It's hard to parse because it's such a little black dot on the screen and you can't really hear it. But I think like every time I see that, I just think of like the presence in that moment. Yeah, true story. Yeah.
Justin, who do you think you are? Justin I was going to do a bit. I have more questions, but I know we're running short on time.
What time is it?
It's like 4:50. I want to make sure people have time to ask questions.
Sure.
No, I have more. So I thank you for putting. I gave Justin gotcha questions on purpose because I thought it would be funny. I had an actual question that's not even written here. I thought the sound design of this movie was really cool, and you did a lot of like really interesting things with sound. What was that? What was kind of the process of putting that together in it? You know, because the version I saw a couple months ago at this point didn't have any of that. So at what point did you kind of land on that being a central part of this movie, and kind of what inspired that? And then I'll open it up to everybody else to ask questions.
Like Tyler said, it kind of just came from like iteration, like just figuring it out along as I went. Like I had this sound library, like a pack of like 10 drones, and I just was like, okay, I'm gonna use all of these drones at a certain point. So yeah, it was just 10 drones and constant tweaking of the volume levels, just because I wanted it, like Tyler said, like punk rock. Like I wanted it to be like extremely loud. And when I tested it this morning, the walls were like rattling, so I had to like go home and like turn it down a little bit because it would have been like just terrible. So yeah.
Shout out to Patrick Dirtle and Zach Meyerson on set.
Does anyone have questions for any of these guys? Anyone? Maddie?
Did you actually make him do your laundry?
I don't know. Did I?
Yes.
One of the washing machines that's in frame is broken, and I thought that was a sweet little visual moment that he put his laundry in a broken machine. That was kind of interesting.
It's kind of, I just noticed this the other day when you were showing me sort of the final cut, but yeah, like Justin said, the washing machine that George uses is broken, like the screen is black, there's nothing on it, and I thought that was kind of serendipitous that the Watcher, you know, he's this big sort of like all-encompassing swirling black square of energy, and I thought it was kind of cool actually that it worked out that the Watcher also had those black squares.
And now you're saying that, it's kind of interesting too, because when the fly flies off screen, it's like the last speck of the darkness, like leaving the frame to just.
Anyone get that? Anyone?
I was about to say that.
And also just to expand upon what Nick was saying earlier about like the Watcher character, like yeah, like remember we had a conversation about like the nature of the Watcher and like what his deal is, because like we wanted him to be like a slasher character, like a Michael Myers or a Freddy character, but what we thought was like most interesting was like if, because like the Watcher, when he catches up with George and then George gets teleported to a debatably better place. So they just wanted to like flip the slasher trope on its head, where it's like, oh, this guy actually doesn't want to hurt our like hero, and so anyway, yeah.
Next question. Anyone else? I can't see who it is, but you.
Sam.
Oh,
Sam, yes.
What feelings do you want to leave the audience with? What do you want us to kind of take away from it? How do you want us to feel at the end?
That's a good question. What do you feel?
I don't think that really matters.
Solace. Yeah, sure. Sentiment. Solace. Any more questions?
Anyone else?
Seriously, thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
You can go home now.
Congratulations, Jake, Mr. Co-Producer.
What's up with that?
There were a lot of people.
I went to Justin. I said co-producer.
I just wanted to be facilities manager because they dumped all their shit in my house. But
I like that Ellen Goldsmith
got
fan. Got a credit.
Well, she's on the hunt for an Oscar.
I said
She
she's
didn't
probably
have the same amount of work on that.
Dude, for Wendell and Wild.
She's done more for this than Percy Jackson.
And what's going to be
Chef Dude.
I watched it twice. How's it going? Is that where we're going? I don't know. Oh my god, I'm good. Good to see you.
Talk to Mr. Director himself.
Yeah, one more week ago.
There's a reception line.
Which I'm very glad because obviously not on purpose, but I realized that my first week
Oh, I dropped my headshot.
James had decided to spend 3 days like and then a day like this guided process. And then
That's good. I feel like having especially your first week.
Yeah, and I found out today that no one noticed.
I feel like there's probably going to be a curve that at least a little bit.
I'm like,
I thought it
I called you back between me and fine,
no one noticed.
I just do it and I lied. It's gonna be a nightmare. This kind of pro con is I'm very good. That's all I'm a person in the department.
Oh, amazing.
Or like very professional friendly, but
Yeah.
process we've got
That's great.
And so I'm like, awesome. But also I'm
It's
like,
so
I
nice
don't
to
want
have
to fuck
something.
up. So.
And you get to be at the Glendale campus, which is a lot of fun.
So awesome.
Because you've been, you said you've been.
Yes, I've been twice. The first time I ever went, I was like, it's game over. Like I have to.
I think it's the best studio I've seen, honestly.
Yeah. And I remember I have all these people being like, well, once you settle in, I'll come for lunch. But it's cool.
That's why I told you that. I was like, I'm getting on your list.
Yeah.
Whatever the
It's like you and David and my friends. And my
we
friends who don't have
know
jobs.
the food.
Free lunch. Yeah.
The food is very good. They have good coffee too.
I don't drink coffee, so I don't know, but
It's a good environment. I'm excited for you. How was the job search or the replacement search going?
someone who will do this year, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. But I believe someone has been signed. I believe someone has been signed.
That is great. That is great.
They really want to prioritize all the dollars.
I like that. No, honestly, I mean, whatever makes them happy is the way to go about it. And then hopefully we can start again. What do you think? Really? Wow. That makes sense, yeah, because you only have 3 days. I only had 2 days. Before.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, yeah, although this does lead to He's like not. Yeah. He's also there.
I like the shirt.
Thank you.
Dude, it's sick. I love it.
Emily. Yeah, Emily. Who's great.
She got me these pants.
She told me to get the boots. That's not a desk experience.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey. It was like one of those things where I was like, oh, like, I want to make sure that's my person. But then also like,
Siobhan is probably able to help.
and Daniel, like people submit, like people are able to help, but it's just like I was like, okay. Because there's one, I think the person.
It's pretty good. Congrats! Oh my god, yes! Oh my god, that's amazing. You were not Oh, like they're kind
And so I'm like just to be like an hour. That seems so really exciting.
Where is it?
Mr. Director!
Thanks for coming.
Thank you! That's the here for here!
Oh my god, I stopped this.